Hello, welcome to the QnA Tech School. I am your host, Jonathan Kyle Hobson, and I'm reporting to you live from the Thinkspot. Thinkspot is a great source for all sorts of useful purposes. They have 3D printers, they have a studio. So this is my class, the QnA Tech School, and I'm using the Thinkspot equipment. I broadcast Fridays at 3 p.m. and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Please find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And let's get started on today's topic, Adobe Creative Cloud. Hello, and here I am. I am Kyle, and over to the side of you I have a pre-recorded thing I did that will go in a loop showing different programs dealing with video editing and the Adobe Creative Cloud. So, hold on, I skipped a step here. Let's go back. Okay, there we go. That's where I needed it. Okay, so the Adobe Creative Cloud. What is the Adobe Creative Cloud? And Amos asked this on Facebook. He asked, what is the Adobe Creative Cloud and how is it free and where can I find it? Well, the Adobe Creative Cloud, and by that, I want to state a claimer here. Adobe isn't supporting this at all. I'm not in affiliation with Adobe. They're not paying me at all. This is completely, on my own. And I just really enjoy their product. I think it can get kind of expensive if you're paying the full price monthly, but it's a great product otherwise. And so the Adobe Creative Cloud is a bundle of apps. And it includes web design, web development, it includes graphic design, it includes publishing tools, and it includes video editing software. And that's what I mostly use, is the video editing aspect of Adobe Creative Cloud. Because with video editing, it encompasses audio editing, animation, and motion graphic editing. And so it has all these different products. And so over on this side, I have this thing going on a loop over here, and it's basically me showing where the Adobe Creative Cloud is. And as you can see, Thinkspot's up there. Again, I'm not in affiliation with the Thinkspot for this particular class. In some classes I am in affiliation with Thinkspot, but in this one I'm not. QnA is completely separate, but I did use the Thinkspot computer to record this process, to record this little video. So the Thinkspot, it provides Adobe Creative Cloud for free. They usually have 2 iMacs with the Adobe Creative Cloud, but they had a nasty malware on one of the Macs, and so they needed to remove it and get tech support on it. If you want to know a little bit more about malware, I have another video on malware and how to avoid getting malware and how to remove malware if you have it. But they had a really nasty virus. But basically, if you're in the Thinkspot and you're using it for free, or if you're at your home in your own computer, you can Adobe Creative Cloud is available for Windows and Mac. I'm primarily a Mac user, so everything I do is really going to be on a Mac. I may do future episodes on Windows. I have used Windows before. I know how to use it. But on a Mac, this is how you find your Adobe apps. In the top corner, if you own Adobe Creative Cloud, in the top corner is going to be where you manage your account. It's the icon in the top corner of your Mac. And same with Windows, it's going to be somewhere else, but there's going to be a little icon, looks like an infinity symbol almost, and that's the Creative Cloud icon. And you saw me open it up there a few times in the video, and that's the Adobe Creative Cloud. That's where you manage your account. Now, since these are public access accounts, you can't get into them. Obviously, they're not logged in. But yeah, you can access Adobe Creative Cloud for free on the Thinkspot computers, and it's really cool. And so now we'll go on, and we'll start talking about the different apps within Adobe Creative Cloud more specifically and what they have to offer. Again, this is not a tutorial, this is just an overview. And you already saw briefly, I accidentally went to a scene ahead of time, but let's go ahead to that scene right now. And so here is Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro CC. So Adobe Premiere Pro CC is their video editing software. Adobe After Effects CC is their motion graphics software, and you can do a lot with Adobe After Effects CC. It's a very powerful engine that can render 3D and that can do a lot of animation, a lot of CG stuff, and visual effects. So it's a great visual effects program. And then there's Adobe Audition CC, which I love as well. It's and Adobe Premiere on its own does some audio editing. You can do audio removal and audio cleaning. But Adobe CC is set up for audio editing. So it's designed for audio editing. And you'll see me go through Adobe CC here soon. But we're on Premiere Pro right now. But Premiere Pro has all sorts of features to offer. From color correcting to, it's all a full video editing suite on its own. It can do some motion graphic editing, some 3D editing. It's pretty cool. You can edit in VR on Premiere Pro. You can edit in 360. So those are recent updates they made in the last summer. So you can do so much with that. You can also purchase third-party plugins or download free third-party plugins that add more to your Premiere Pro experience, or any Adobe app for that matter. Now we're here on After Effects and getting you a video showing After Effects right now. And After Effects, I don't use personally After Effects that much. I'm more comfortable with just using Premiere only because it's just that I haven't expanded out to what After Effects really has to offer. There's a lot of things that you can really only do on After Effects. After Effects is again a super powerful engine. I've used it briefly. I don't use it on a regular everyday basis. I know how to basically operate the program, move around in it. But Adobe After Effects is a great program, and I really enjoy it. Here you see Adobe Audition. Adobe Audition is what I was talking about before. It's a great sound editing program. Another great thing about all these programs is they're all bundled. So they all kind of work together and they understand each other. They speak the same language. So it's really easy to switch, go from Adobe Audition to Adobe Premiere to Adobe After Effects. And one I haven't mentioned, Adobe SpeedGrade, which I don't use Adobe SpeedGrade at all. If I'm going to do color correcting, I mostly try to stay within Premiere. If I have to go out of Premiere, I use DaVinci Resolve, which we'll talk about tomorrow in a video editing overview. But DaVinci Resolve is also another color correcting program that I prefer. But SpeedGrade is a fully integrated color correcting program that offers a layout for color correcting and is very intuitive and follows and is part of that bundle, and they all work together. And so SpeedGrade is an option to color correct in, and it gives you some advanced color correcting settings. But over the summer, Premiere Pro updated their color correcting services in Premiere Pro, and so the Premiere Pro itself has a color correcting tab that offers the same kind of things that SpeedGrade offers. So SpeedGrade, the only advantage to using that is you get a layout designed for color correcting. Over here, you have Media Encoder, which is really cool because let's say you have to export your project and you want to use Adobe Premiere while you're exporting. Then you can queue it, and it will open up a media encoder, and then the program will go to that and export in media encoder, so that way you can continue using Premiere. Now, I would warn you, if your computer isn't fast enough, then you're going to have slowdown issues or you're going to have problems there. But Premiere Pro is really good about using your RAM, and it gives you RAM settings. That's one reason why I really like Premiere Pro, is it allows you to customize those RAM settings as well as all their apps. It allows you to customize those RAM settings and tell it how much RAM you want the program to use. Plus, it can use your GPU and so forth. So it's really cool. And right there, you saw a second ago, you saw Character Animator. Character Animator is fairly new. It's still in beta. It's a package that comes along with Adobe After Effects. So when you download Adobe After Effects, you usually have Character Animator if you have the latest version of Adobe After Effects. And Character Animator is a really easy way to animate. It's not very efficient, not very clean. It's kind of like a quick and dirty way to animate, but it's for beginner animators. But it also allows you to animate live. So I've been experimenting with it to kind of do on my live shows, to do live animations with characters. But yeah, it allows you to create different what are they called? Different layers for different attributes. That's what I was looking for. Attributes of your character, and then it reads you on the camera as you saw before, and it'll probably maybe not read because I'll probably switch before that. But it reads your face, and when you do facial movements, ooh, ooh, or talk. The character talks, and then you can even like the hands don't work, but you can control the hands with the keyboard or with the mouse, and you can connect different keys on the keyboard to your character. And when you click A, the character does something. When you click S, the character does something. So it's a very like interesting way to animate. It makes the animating process the animation process still just as time consuming as you want it to be, but it allows you to animate live, which I guess is the advantage. And there's all sorts of cool things you can do with it. You can also pre-record stuff, but it's really cool. And then, but it also, like, I think lip syncing is probably the best thing for Character Animator, because if you have your character and you want to lip sync it, then it makes it really easy to do that really quickly. Now, of course, you sacrifice quality when you do something quickly, but it still looks pretty cool to me, and it's definitely a unique style that some people like. And there's all sorts of cool free characters you can download to try out and the demo, and so that's pretty cool. Now let's go on. So let's see, did I mention everything in there? Oh yeah, Adobe Animator. I never used it. I'm not an animator. My sister's an animator, but Adobe Animator, I think it's like basically similar to Character Animator, but it doesn't use the webcam, so it's completely like you have to design stuff. But I think it still uses Flash, which is kind of being outdated, and we're switching Flash with HTML5. And that's one thing about Adobe, it's still trying to hold on to its product, which is Flash, and which was really popular for a long time on the internet, and everyone used Flash. But nowadays, things are starting not to support it, and Apple really has a problem with Flash. So on their, at least on their iPhones, it's an issue with Flash and using Flash. So HTML5 is becoming way more popular because of Apple and because of other reasons, because it has more ability and it's easier to use. But Adobe's still holding on to Flash. So a lot of their animation programs, I think, still use Flash, and so that could be an issue. Or a lot of their web design programs still have Flash integrated as well. But yeah, Adobe Animator is a good option. And then Adobe Stories no longer supported by Adobe, so I don't have an example of it. But you have to download it separately. I think it's basically free. I think you can pay for a subscription that offers you stuff, but you don't really need to. Definitely, if you're paying for Adobe Creative Cloud, I think you might already have that subscription. But yeah, basically, it's a really cool script writing software. So pre-production is really important in any design process, video design process. And so it provides you with that screenwriting tools, and it's very advanced, very cool, and very easy to use. And I think the reason they no longer support Adobe Stories because they're coming out with something new that will basically do the same thing down the line. So now let's go on. And here we have Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Lightroom. This is what Adobe is really known for, is their photo editing softwares. Adobe Fuse as well. Adobe Fuse is new, it's still in beta. Adobe Photoshop, though, is what they're really known for. And I think you can buy this product separately on its own as well. You can also buy lighter versions of it, like Adobe Element 16, which is a lighter version of it. And then I don't talk about it at all on here, but Adobe has lots of different apps for the phone, which I'll mention a little bit tomorrow. But they have all sorts of different apps on their phone, mobile apps, which are really cool. And so if you have it's not like practical for me on my little phone, but if you have like a tablet, then you could when you pay for it monthly, you get 2 copies of it for a computer and 1 copy for a mobile device. So you can install your apps on a mobile device, and then they work together, and you can communicate that way. There's all sorts of cool things you can do. But Adobe Lightroom here, you see on the screen going through here. Adobe Lightroom is awesome. I'd never used it until I needed to do it for this program. But I realized it's really cool. It has all sorts of cool photo organization software. It's not really useful to use here at the library because it's not your computer. But if you have Lightroom on your personal computer, then you can use it to easily organize all your products. And so Adobe Lightroom is really useful for that. It's really easy to use, very simplistic. Its editing tools are a lot more primitive than Photoshop. You can't mask, or you can't do outlines of things. You can't do certain things like that. But you can do the basic photo editing stuff, and so you can change the basic settings of photo editing, saturation, vibration, and what other ones? Hue, white balance, exposure, highlights, shadows, all that kind of stuff you can do. Sharpness, and so it's pretty cool. But if you need a more advanced photo editor that can do more manipulation and also design graphics, you can see here Photoshop. And I designed these graphics that I use on Photoshop. So Photoshop can design graphics and it can edit photos, and it's really cool. Has a myriad of tools, and we'll definitely do a future tutorial on Photoshop on this channel, so you can check that out to learn more about how to use Photoshop or more about what it's capable of. Yeah, and I really feel like I need to get the information out there on what is available to people and what these programs can do, because there's just so many things they can do, and it's really cool. Yeah, so Adobe Photoshop has really got, so if you want a program that's like simple to use and you just need to edit your photos really quickly, and you know exactly what you want in your photos each time, and you want a good system that organizes your photos, Lightroom. If you want to just edit your photos in more detail and you want to organize them yourself on your filing system, then Photoshop. So that's a big difference. And then Adobe Fuse is actually a 3D designing program, a 3D character designing program that works alongside with Photoshop. I think it downloads with Photoshop, and it basically I briefly went on there, and it basically just has a bunch of different pre-designed faces and body designs, human body designs, and you can basically just choose a human face and build a human body from scratch with Fuse. And you can also create your own 3D templates and your own 3D objects as well. And it's apparently down. I think you can download 3D templates and project and graphics and things like that. And Adobe Fuse is designed for that. But I don't know much about it. I haven't used it that much. And then let's go on. So we have Adobe InDesign Cc, which so last year, maybe like 5 years ago, I used it a lot. When I was in college, I did graphic design for a little while for UTV-62 at NAU, and I had to learn InDesign and Illustrator, and so basically, Illustrator is like if you publishing tool for making books and all sorts of things, and then InDesign is more of a graphic design program. So it's kind of like, it's very similar to Photoshop, but it's more like you're creating from scratch. Like Photoshop, you're kind of usually starting with something, you're putting in layers and you're mixing it together, you're manipulating photos, and you can also create graphics from scratch, but it's not really designed for that. You can create shapes in Photoshop, but in design, you can really manipulate objects and create those photos and all sorts of stuff. I mean, create those graphics from scratch and so forth. So it's a preferred program for graphic designers. And a graphic designer might know more than me, but yes, it's a tool for graphic designing, and I suggest it. And then there's a tool for books and for designing magazine titles and designing all sorts of things for publishing for print and for web. So it's designed for print and web, and so it has tools for both print and web. And then it also has InkCopy, which works along with them. And InkCopy is for publishing, but it's also kind of a word program. So it's a word processing program, so you can type in it and you can write your books, you can write your magazine, and then you can import that into Illustrator or into InDesign, and you can manipulate it and use it to create your magazine or your web article or whatever, and so or your book. And so InkCopy is a word processing system. And then Adobe Acrobat is also a word processor. It's really popular. PDFs. Adobe Acrobat are used to make PDFs, and that comes with the Adobe Creative Cloud, and it's really cool. All sorts of cool things. On my computer, it's a processor killer. It takes surprisingly a lot of RAM, and it's kind of slow, but you can do a lot, and you can semi-protect your password protect things, and you can semi-protect things from being edited. Because it locks it in that PDF format, which people can't usually edit very easily or as easily, and so it's really cool. And so so that's pretty good. That's all I have to say about those programs, and we'll go on. Okay, so Adobe Dreamweaver and Adobe Muse. So the difference between Adobe Muse and Dreamweaver: Muse, if you don't want to do anything with the coding and you're like, no code for me, Adobe Muse. Muse is a very simplistic program. You can basically it's kind of like Wax, I think it is, or Squarespace. those web design programs online where you can just like go in and design your website and then all that. So Muse is kind of like a program you download onto your computer that does that, and so it has a bunch of pre-designed widgets and pre-designed stuff and templates that are put together for you. Then you can move them around, and I think it's overlooked a lot. Like I haven't heard a whole lot about it, but it's pretty cool. And one thing I think that's a downside is that some of its widgets still heavily rely on Flash, I believe. I haven't used all their widgets, but I think some of them still heavily rely on Flash, which is an issue. But yeah, so it's like pretty cool, and you can just all you gotta do is like you can just type text normally. You can drag things around. So if you know how to use Photoshop, you can use Muse. If you know how to use InDesign, you can use Muse. If you know how to use Adobe Premiere, you can use Muse really easily. Now Dreamweaver is, and now you're seeing Muse on the screen now. Before you saw Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver is a program for coding. So Dreamweaver allows you to like code in JavaScript, PHP, HTML, all sorts of web design coding softwares. It's not really design. I think you can do like actual software coding, but I don't think it's designed for that. I'm not really familiar if it does that or not. Someone may tell me in the comments if it does, or I can look it up later if someone wants me to answer that question. But yeah, it basically just does different for web development specifically. And so it does provide a live view, but I think it's really inefficient and it doesn't display very well. So it's best to stay in code view, but you can use it like Adobe Muse, where you're in the live view and you're seeing your live page and you can move objects around and edit images a little bit. But again, in the past, maybe they updated and fixed it and made it better. But in the past, I felt that's very choppy and doesn't do a very good job. And it also messes up your code. And so it's really weird. So I prefer, if I'm going to use Adobe Dreamweaver, to stay in the code. For me, though, if I'm going to be editing HTML or just simple JavaScript, I think Adobe Dreamweaver is too heavy of a program. It just has too many things that I don't use or I don't really like to use. If I'm going to edit HTML code, which I've done a lot in the past, or PHP and like that, I like a very simple, bare minimum program that just colors the text for me, and that's it. Like that's all I need. I don't need all these tools that Dreamweaver offers, because my personal computer it's not as powerful, anywhere near as powerful as the library's computer. My personal computer just operates so slow with Adobe Dreamweaver. It takes so long to open, and that's a very process intensive program. I think a little bit too process intensive for the needs of coding. But it's a cool program nonetheless, and it's good for coding and so forth. And then Adobe does offer, I think, like Adobe Fireworks and other programs like Adobe Flash that are designed for designing code, and you can do all sorts of cool code. And then they're coming out with more programs, and they're updating that to be more up to date. I think the reason why I didn't mention them is I think still I never really use them. So I'm still like I didn't know much about them, and I didn't really. And the programs weren't really open. Like Adobe Experience Design was asking for the password for the login information, create account login information for some reason. So yeah, so I haven't really used them before, so I didn't really know much to say about them. But I think they're still very Flash based is the thing, and they're still very, very Flash based. And Adobe Experience Design Cc is going to be one of those programs. It's still in beta. It downloads with Dreamweaver, but it allows you to design mobile apps and also like web apps and so forth. So it's a really could be a really cool program, I imagine, but it just wouldn't work for me. And I don't know if it's going to be still Flash based, or it's going to allow you to code in other codes. But I bet it will. But it will allow you to code in anything you want, because they have to stay with their competition. So that's basically it. We can go back to the subject here, topic. Yeah. So basically that's everything. We can see if you have any questions here. Adobe Creative Cloud is really cool. I want to keep these episodes short, so we'll probably call it an episode. Cause lately, I've been having really long episodes. I just talk. But yeah, tomorrow I'm doing an overview on alternatives to Adobe Creative Cloud, free alternatives, and paid alternatives, the pros and cons of both video and photo editing. So I won't go into graphic design, and I won't go into web development or software development or animation. But within the field of video and photo editing, I'll give you some alternatives and also mention some mobile apps out there, because you may not need with what you want to do. You may not need the features that Adobe Premiere offers. It may be too hard of a learning curve for you, and maybe too much just in general, and may just not be what you need. So you may need something like more compact, something free, something that you can just download on your home computer, and that's available here at the library, and then you can use that instead of paying monthly, or instead of always coming here to use the program. So there's all sorts of free programs, and we'll talk about that tomorrow in that episode. Yeah, and then my Q and Bert show starts next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We go live, and so the rehearsal went really great yesterday. So we got some pretty good content. We'll go off there, and the first one will be pretty short episode, and we'll be testing what it's like and stuff like that. And so pretty cool. Catch that and keep following me. Like me on Facebook, and join us next time. So tomorrow, this has been QnA Tech School live from the Mesa Thinkspot, which is pretty empty today. But yeah, that's the QnA Tech School. This is presented by Qonda Entertainment, and I am Jonathan Kyle Hobson. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Please subscribe and interact with our posts. Tomorrow we'll go over free versus paid programs and pros